set the scene very nicely for what I will talk to you about today. So, I want to remind us, and I probably don't need to remind us, that we are coming out of a pandemic. Now, the pandemic has been quite a difficult time for all of us, but those of us interested in wearables, I would argue it's been the time of massive development. COVID has certainly helped us. You can see from the slide here, in terms of deaths, over 6 million, a big, big problem, as you can all appreciate. However, this pandemic is not unprecedented. In 1918, the Spanish flu, up to 100 million people died. As we can see from the slide from the Red Cross, a lot of the technology that is being used today, I can see most of you, if not everyone in the room, is wearing a face mask. It was the same technology used to get us out of the Spanish flu. However, we have other tools, as I'm going to speak about today, wearables, that have really helped us get out of the pandemic much quicker. I don't know what the situation is like in Germany, but I know that in the UK, where I live, if you wanted to see your doctor, you couldn't see your doctor. You could only get access to your doctor from home. And so this kind of technology, utilizing apps, certainly became enhanced and was accelerated because of the pandemic. As a member of the International Olympic Medical and Scientific Commission, we are particularly interested in heat, as I'll show you just now in my presentation. And global warming has certainly brought heat to the fore in a very big way. Sporting events are going to be conducted more and more in very hot environments. We are expecting our athletes to do amazing feats more and more often in very difficult conditions. So all of these factors, I believe, have helped us really develop technology that can help the coaches, help the physiologists, help the doctors, and importantly, as you saw from my title, make sport more exciting, enhancing the brand. As you can see from this slide here, this is the journalist from the BBC's view of what football may be like in 50 years' time. Shorter games, a lot of substitutions, and as you can see here from the slide here, the coach looking at a dashboard, a virtual dashboard, to see how his athletes are responding in match play. And the journalist here is talking about 2050. I would say the reasons I've already mentioned to you have accelerated the development of this technology, and it's not going to be 2050. Coaches in the room, be ready. It's happening now, and I'll show you in my presentation. Also, most of you will be aware of the metaverse. Some of you will be happy about the metaverse, some of you will be unhappy about the metaverse. However, I can tell you the technology that the coach is going to be using and athletes are going to be using is going to be developed dramatically because of projects like the metaverse. I see metaverse as a threat, but also as an opportunity. If you think about it, going to the moon allowed us to develop technology that we all use every day. The metaverse, ladies and gentlemen, are going to do the same. We need to control it a little bit. And in case you're living in a bubble and you don't know what the metaverse is, allow me just for a few seconds to play this short clip of a movie. Can I click on it? Okay, I think it's doing it. Anyway, have a look at that movie and you'll get an idea of what is coming. Okay, they're calling it Oasis, we're calling it Metaverse. And Hollywood has the ability to predict a little bit the future.
He died when I was a kid.
So, in terms of opportunity, as I mentioned to you, the Olympic Games in Tokyo, the next games, Summer Games being held in Paris, and then LA, is a real problem for those of us wanting to protect the health of our athletes in those competitions. And I must acknowledge the IOC, the International Olympic Committee's research fund, because a lot of what I'll show you today was funded by the IOC. And I'd like to also acknowledge my colleagues on the expert group of the IOC who really helped implement this technology. Those of you involved in elite sport will know that the Olympic movement tends to be a little bit not wanting to develop new technologies and being a little bit slow in some of these things. But they have been really amazing in terms of allowing us to utilize this technology in the games, as I'll show you. And I'm really I'm very appreciative of this. Those of you who are preparing athletes for Tokyo must have seen this document, Beat the Heat. I hope you did. And this document very much explained how athletes should prepare for the conditions of Tokyo. And this document will be a living document and will enhance it for Paris and for LA. And I'm confident a lot of the technology that you heard today at this event will start featuring in this kind of a brochure to protect the health of athletes. Because what we don't want to happen is what you can see here. This is the Commonwealth Games, and Scottish athlete Callum Hawkins is winning the race. 2 kilometers to go, and he collapses. He collapses twice. It took over 4 minutes for him to receive treatment. The doctors in the room will know that if an athlete or a patient is not cooled down in 30 minutes and they suffer exertional heat stroke, they could have permanent or even life-threatening and death results because of that. So we don't want this happening. And I'm just back also from the Winter Olympic Games in Beijing, where we're having to deal with cold. And there are races around the world that have become more common, where you start very warm, go up to very cold, and come down to very warm again. We want athletes to do this. But you, the coaches, the physiologists, you have to protect your athletes to do this job. And here you can see here, 21 elite, these were the best Chinese runners, died in this race last year. This shouldn't be happening, ladies and gentlemen. So we can protect the health and we can also enhance performance. So thanks to the IOC, and I thank the previous speaker for alerting you to this development, we developed this technology, which is really an ecosystem of trying to collect information from the best sensors that are available to allow you to make informed decisions, or the doctor to make informed decisions. And so you could have numerous different sensors through a smartwatch, through cellular connectivity, and utilizing servers. We can provide information to the broadcaster, to the clinic, to the athlete. Obviously, those of you as coaches will know the sport has strict rules as to what information you can give your athletes. But maybe we need to modernize a little bit those rules, and I'll come back to that. And those of you interested, especially the students who are listening to us, there's 2 nice papers that you can read if you're interested in how this technology was developed. But also the doctors in the room. We know that skin sensors are the future of healthcare. I would argue real-time is the future of healthcare. So let us, I hope, impress you a little bit with what we did in Tokyo. We wanted to understand the environment of the athlete and then how each athlete responds. This is an excellent conference this last 2 days, because what Willem is trying to do is understand the individual response. All of us respond differently in the same environment. So here you can see we looked at venues which we considered high risk, and in real time, every second, we were monitoring the environmental conditions. And here you see my colleague, Sebastian Rassiner, who you'll know, setting up the devices at various venues, as you can see here, from equestrian to hockey to beach volleyball, and so on. And I want to show you one example. This is from hockey, and that's me setting up the environmental device. And you can see here this match between Australia and the Netherlands finished at 2-2. But I'd like to draw your attention to the WBGT of 34. And those of you who don't really appreciate WBGT, well, anything above 32 should be cancelled. It's not safe. But these athletes competed above 32. So maybe we need to also consider the rules and utilizing these technologies to make these decisions. Those of you who remember Tokyo, the decision was made to move the marathon to Sapporo for better conditions. Those of you who watched the race or the races and the race walking would have seen that actually the conditions were worse. You can't predict the future. So we got the environmental monitoring spot on. We could immediately tell second by second what the conditions were. But what we are interested in this room is the individual response. And in sports like Formula One, they've been doing this for a long time in terms of the car. There are hundreds of sensors. You watch Formula One, you can see all the information is known about the car. The engineers know when the car is going to not make it. Why is it, ladies and gentlemen, that today, in 2022, we can't do the same for the human, for the driver? The driver is in an accident, the car blows up, we don't know if the driver is alive. That shouldn't be the case. Or the swimmer who had a cardiac arrest and drowned and the body wasn't found for days. That shouldn't be happening today. So let me show you some examples of what we did. So this is the Olympic Village. This is one particular athlete. And we can see during the whole course of the day, this is temperature, how the athlete responded. Here you can see some drinking, here did some training, here did some sleeping. And we were interested obviously in temperature because of the heat. But any parameter that you are interested in, as long as there's a sensor for it, or we can develop the sensor, you can add to the ecosystem. And I'll show you some examples. Again, the most exciting of all was on the 30th of July. It was the 10,000 meters final on the track. And here's my colleague Sebastian setting up the environmental condition devices. And this is the dashboard you saw early on. And this is exactly what we could see. And this was done for the first time. Now, the athletes are lining up at the start. And we're waiting now. And the gun's going to go off. And the athletes are going to go. And you can see, there they go. Okay? At the same time, in real time, as you can see all these responses. Why aren't we using this technology in every race? Why aren't we broadcasting this to make our sport more exciting? I don't have too much time, so I'll take you straight to the end. That was the end of the race. For the first time, you can see a heart rate 200, core temperature 40.2. We also had those of you interested in biomechanics. We can tell about the movement of the athlete. Coaches in the room, this technology is for you because we normally look at our athletes in training. But you know, the best athlete in training is not the best athlete in competition. Let's use competition for training. And this technology allows us to do that. To give you a flavor of what it was like for us, this is myself sitting in the stadium. Here the on my phone, as you can see there, I can see the responses. Now, in the same race, I can't tell you who used our technology. I'm sure we can talk about data protection. It's going to be a big issue. But this athlete didn't wear the technology. But look what happened to him. It's Patrick Tiernan from the back here, you can see here. And he's about to fall, and he falls flat on his face. We had to treat this athlete for hours afterwards in the medical tent. So you can see this technology is not being implemented yet. Can we protect from this happening to our athletes? So we need to implement. I already mentioned to you that this technology was also being used in Sapporo, and you can see a live recording here of what we did in Sapporo. Again, the same kind of responses. And we did that for a number of the high-risk events. What are we trying to do now? Obviously, we had Tokyo. 2 weekends ago, we tested 40 runners who ran the Brighton Marathon. And there's the Lausanne Marathon, other events that we wanted to do around the world to perfect the technology. Athletes will only use technology if it helps them. And we have to make the technology very athlete-friendly. And I'll be very interested to hear from Max whether he would find technology like this useful for him. But moving forward, in terms of the next games and preparing our athletes for the heat conditions, well, this is a page from the brochure where we talk about acclimation or acclimatization, which is preparing our athletes for the heat. Those of you who had athletes in Tokyo, I'm sure you acclimated them. But the problem was that you acclimated your athletes using the same protocol, but everyone is different. So what we are trying to do now for the next games is try to individualize the preparation. Here you can see from the slide the kind of parameters that are interesting to see whether your athlete is acclimatized. But one parameter we really wanted to use is sweat rate and sweat composition. You may recognize the young Eliud Kipchoge and Bruno Kipruto. These were fantastic athletes. And this was back in 2007. I'm going to compare 2007 with 2022. Here we have one of our orthopedic surgeons here, also renal transplant surgeons, applying a sweat patch to the athlete. We take the sweat patch, we send it back to the UK, and 1 month later we get the result. That's no use. What we want is, what the coach wants, is the result immediately. And that's what needs to happen. And we are engaging with companies, and I know Willem Bloch, myself, we attend Medica every year, engaging with these companies who are coming up with this kind of technology. Here's one of the companies, and I'm not here to advertise companies, but they are producing the technology. Yes, we need to validate it. One of these sensors is not going to help the coach. It's the ecosystem of sensors which is going to help the coach. Look in this promotional video what they are wanting to do. But just having temperature is of no use. Why? The fastest athlete has the highest temperature. He's not sick, he's just fast, high metabolic rate. Issues of when to drink. This company is doing things a little bit naughty, saying, oh, okay, you got 2% weight loss, you must drink so much. We know it's not like that. This information is vital for the coach. And that's why I think the future, the presence, is incorporating all of this technology. Going back to Sapporo and now going in terms of the future, we are now looking at sensors which we can apply onto the shoes, into the clothing. We heard about smart clothing. I'm restricted, I can't tell you, but this weekend, somewhere in Germany, there are going to be 6 world records attempted. The technology you see here on the slide will be used. I hope the athletes are successful in breaking these 6 world records. And for the first time ever, we'll have this kind of data that you see during a world record attempt and the breaking of the world record. Imagine how important that's going to be for the coach. Imagine in the future the broadcaster who's going to broadcast the breaking of a world record. It's good for everybody, I would argue. But as you all, and you can see some of the parameters that you can measure, but as I think someone said before in the previous presentation, the sensors must work. And for the scientists in the room, the students listening to us, PhD students, we need to make sure that the sensors do what they say they're doing. So here we have a trial that we are doing at the moment, sponsored by the Swiss company On, looking at 3 very good sensors, Orphe from Japan, Stride, and GateUp. We want to know which is better, which is accurate. Do none of them work? We need to find out. Also, in terms of looking at pressure and force, there are a number of companies that are selling these devices. Again, we need to validate them and also make them more athlete-friendly so they can be used. There's also other applications. There's no ending in what can be used.
Today,
would have seen from that for the patient, using a phone and taking a reading is okay. But when Max is competing or someone else is competing, you can't have the luxury to chase them to do a measurement. So sport can enhance medicine and medicine can enhance sport. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Already athletes around the world are starting to use this technology. Again, important, you want to know, what is the response of your athlete live in terms of glucose? The biochemist in the room will know if you can measure glucose, you can measure lactate. Then you can do the lactate threshold. Then you can do running economy. Then you can do, can you see what I'm saying? Let's modernize sports medicine. Let's modernize sports science. But we have to change the rules. I have huge discussions and debate with my friend at UCI, Javier Bigard, who says, no, this must be banned. My opinion is no, it mustn't be banned. Let's utilize technology as a replacement for drugs in sport. Can you see what that's another way of getting rid of drugs. Give them opportunities to enhance, to become the best they can do utilizing technology. What training program is best? The coaches in the room know that if you do the same training program with all the athletes, some will get better, some will get worse. You need to individualize the training. Can we use this technology? I'm interested in altitude training. And normally, it takes us sometimes a year or two to get a cylinder of carbon monoxide to altitude in Kenya, Ethiopia. And then it's so difficult to do total hemoglobin mass measurements. And we published this work and others have utilized this. I'm sure those of you go to altitude. Why don't we use wearables like this to look at what happens to hemoglobin live? So we know you are ready, you are not ready, and you are ready. Why aren't we using this? But we're saying altitude doesn't work. Don't use it. It doesn't work if you don't do it properly, yes. But if you don't do altitude training, you have no chance to win a distance event. No chance, unless you're taking drugs. Other applications, and this is from there's some selected ones that I have in the 3 minutes I have left. And this is a nice example from Mike Loosemore, my friend, who with a company that he's working with, has developed sensors for the mouth. Imagine us protecting our athletes when they're being hit in boxing or heading the football. Let's just ban heading football. Let's monitor it. And he presented some nice data showing they could identify what kind of hits were required to produce brain damage. Let's make sport safer. We know, all of us in this room know, elite sport is not safe. Let's make it safer so we can enjoy our athletes' performances. I've not had much time to talk about broadcasting. Any one of you interested in selling your sport? You have to make it exciting because the sponsors are not going to sponsor your sport. You have to make it exciting. And here, as we can see in this example here with AWS, they're providing data to make the sport more exciting, to sell the sport. Well, technology like this is going to help us do that. I know there are many problems. Who owns the data? Does Max want his data to be over the screen so his competitor knows his data? I can see the problems, but we can find solutions. So for me, the next frontier is what we can see here. Sensors, materials, breakthroughs, applications, devices in order to make sports safer, faster, healthier, better, stronger. I strongly believe this. But I know there are many ethical issues that we have to overcome. But like anything in life, let's don't make the difficulties stop developments that can revolutionize our sport. One of my heroes in science is Otto Meyerhoff, a German physiologist. You may recall of him 100 years ago, got a Nobel Prize. If he was alive today, he would say to us physiologists, what have you done in 100 years? We still talk about the anaerobic threshold. That's the latest technology. Let's modernize, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention.